Hey there, students. This video is to give you a demonstration of how to take one of our big Proctorio exams in this class, which would be either our midterms or our final exam, that will actually take place in Webassign. But we have to start it up here in Canvas in order to have Proctorio proctor the test for us remotely. So we're starting on our home page here, and I am logged in as a student, and this is from a student's perspective. And so if I click on modules up on the upper left there, here's our module list. So in order to do typical Webassign assignments, you would go to graded assignments here and be able to sort of open them from there. But the Proctorio exams have to be begun in a Canvas quiz so that Proctorio can be engaged. So those you're going to find down here in our last module where it says Proctorio Webassign exams. So you're going to go there to start the exam, but I would recommend that you go ahead and set up the login link before you do that, and the easiest way to do that is to open the graded assignments. The first link is Webassign, and that you just go over to Webassign and log in. So it may remember you and log you in automatically or ask for your login name and password. If you see the home page here, then you're logged in. So then I'm going to go back over here and go to modules. And it's not mandatory that you do that first, but I'm just trying to show you the smoothest version of this process that I can. All right, so now you're ready to take the test. So I would click on Proctorio Webassign exams. And as yet, your midterms and final are not there yet, but I've set up a practice test that doesn't count toward your grade, that you can do as many times as you need to help you practice to make sure that Proctorio is set up correctly on your computer, that you know how to use it. And by practicing using Proctorio first and getting used to the process, then when you finally do have to do it for one of your graded exams, like our first midterm, hopefully that will go very smoothly and comfortably, and the practicing of that in advance will help assure that's the case. So how do I take any of the exams over here? I click on it. And there are some instructions here that basically explain what you're about to see, that you're going to start with a question here in the quiz, and then there'll be a link there to take you over to the Webassign test, and that there'll be a password required, which will be given to you. And most importantly, let me just draw your attention. There's a warning here. Do not close out of the Canvas tab while taking the exam. The Canvas tab needs to stay open because that's what's running Proctorio. And then there'll be a button here for you to take the quiz. So I'm going to click on that. And now Proctorio becomes engaged, and it's giving you an opening page explaining what they're going to do. And you can read this and see some of the details, shows you what things will be recorded. Now, I also want to point out that the clock has not started for your test at this point, so you're not in a rush at this point. Take your time to read this as much as you like. But when you're ready, then it has a link on the bottom to start the exam pre-checks. So now it's going to check that your webcam is functioning correctly, your microphone, and it's going to bring up a window for you to share your screen because that's going to be recorded. And you have to click on the screen here and then click share. Some people see that and don't know what to do. Click on the screen here and then hit share. Now there's this indicator here that Proctorio is now sharing your screen. Do not click stop sharing. You can hide this if you want. I would suggest you just leave it there. But just do not stop that share. Do not close the Canvas tab because either of those types of activities will invalidate the exam. And that's happened before, and I don't want to invalidate someone's exam. So now you can see what your webcam is sharing. There's a little suggestion that you are about to start your test, and this would be a good time to take a quick run to the bathroom or get some water and get comfy and things like that. And in this picture, you should see a clear image of yourself, because if I can't see a clear image of yourself taking the test, the exam will be invalidated. So the next step, if I click on next, will be, I believe, ID verification. So now you want to get your ID card and hold it steadily in front of your webcam so it can take a picture. And sometimes that takes a minute. And now when you've taken this picture, you need to assure that the picture is clear and that I will be able to see the photo in it clearly, as well as the name on the ID clearly. Because if I can't, that will invalidate your exam. I've had this happen several times before. So if it's not clear, you can say retake, and then you can try again until you make sure you get a nice picture that is legible. I'm going to do that one more time. I want my son's ID to come in very clearly. And you just need to use like a DVC photo ID is good, or maybe a California photo ID is fine too. So as long as the picture is fairly clear and the ID is legible in terms of the name, then you have what you need. And we'll even show you this, and that you want to make sure side by side that that photo ID looks enough like you and is clear enough so that I can see that that's the ID of the person taking the test. And then there's a paragraph of you explaining and agreeing that by clicking on this, you are that person in that photo ID, and that I will then be able to verify that that's the person sitting there taking the test. So then you hit exam, I accept, and the exam will begin. So now it brings you up the quiz in Proctorio, and notice there's a clock that is started over here. I've set the clock for the Canvas quiz to be actually a half hour longer than you actually have for our test. As you can see in the syllabus, our test is a 2-hour exam, and this is set for 2.5 hours. That's because I want every minute of the actual 2 hours to only be counted while you're actually doing the math problems. So I've set a 2-hour clock in Webassign, and that clock only begins once you're actually looking at the first math problem. And so there's an extra half hour here so that you can sort of leisurely find your way over there without worrying about actually starting your 2-hour clock. Okay, so what do they show you here? There's a repetition of the instructions you were shown at the beginning. And it says use this password to take the exam in Webassign. So I'm going to go ahead and copy in order to paste in Webassign the password, so I don't have to worry about typing it correctly. And then it says exam link, and that's the link that will take you over to the test in Webassign. So I click on the exam link, it says okay, and then it takes me over to Webassign, and now it's immediately asking for that password that I was just shown. Now, one possibility, if you had not logged in to Webassign first, as I did earlier in this video, then it might ask you to log in at this point, and you might have to log in with your username and password into Webassign. And then it might even take you back to the home page if that happens, and if so, you can just go over to the tab in Canvas and click on the exam link again, and then you should get to this page for the exam and be able to enter the password. But by my logging in advance, it saved me from having to do that now. So I give it the password that I copied. Now it says, all right, we got it, good job, and when you're ready, launch the assignment. That's what's going to then show you the math problems. That's when the 2-hour clock is going to start. And you click launch assignment and you're good to go. And here's the test. So in this practice test I've made a couple of things to point out. Obviously, since this doesn't count toward your grade and it's just for practicing using Proctorio, you don't have to worry about doing any of these math problems. What I did is I just threw in one problem from each of the chapters in Calc 1 and 2 from chapter 1 through 11. Just to have some math in here so you can see what it looks like. Also, because this is the practice test, I didn't put the 2-hour clock on this. There is no clock on this. But if you did have the 2-hour clock running, then in the upper right-hand corner, there would be a clock with a countdown so that you could see that you have 2 hours and how much time is left as you go through to these problems. So if I roll down, you can see you can do the problems in any order you want. You have to put in your answers. When you go to put in an answer, the typical Webassign stuff comes up. Then it's showing you can put things in. And so this works like the typical Webassign problems. If you click on something where you have an open free answer, the little calculator symbols show over here if you need to put in something more complicated. During the entire time you're taking your test, the Proctorio is sharing your screen icon should still be here unless you hit it. If you stopped it, your test is invalid. So leave that there. Don't mess with that. Also, if you go down to the bottom, then that's where the submission button will be for your exam. So you can skip around, enter all the exam answers that you want. And then when you're done, submit your assignment. And that needs to be done before the 2 hours time limit is elapsed. If you get to the 2-hour time limit, it will basically submit it for you automatically. Now, along the way, you may choose to save some answers, assignment in progress. That won't stop the clock. But for example, if you've been in here for 20 minutes and you've got a few answers, you could come down here and save it. The answers should be submitted as soon as you type them in, but it avoids the possibility that you somehow have a power outage in the middle and you have to go and log back in and then maybe you lost an answer or something. So if you're paranoid about that, that's perfectly reasonable and you could save along the way. But ultimately, you do want to get all of your answers in here and then submit the exam when you're done. So let's say I was just going and I was doing my problems here and I was putting in my answers. I'm sure they're all 7. And I get to the point where I said, yeah, that's what I can do, or I'm about out of time, and then you submit. So when you submit your assignment, it will grade it right then and show you what you got right or wrong. You can review it. You basically have done what you needed to do. And then when you decide you're done looking at this, you want to go back over to the Canvas page and submit quiz here because that will stop the Proctorio process. So then I submit quiz. And it'll say, okay, you're turning it in. Proctorio review will end in 5 minutes, or you can click here when you're done. And I'm just going to click here because I'm done. And that's it. That's how you do a Proctorio exam administered in Webassign, but with Proctorio watching over you while you do it. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. Best of luck, everybody, and hopefully this helps.